I had just finished 8 years of the most grueling education program at Harvard, and my doctoral graduation was finally here. This was the moment I had dreamed about since I was 12 years old, when I promised my grandmother on her deathbed that I would become the first person in our family to earn a PhD. I could practically feel her watching over me as I hung my graduation dress in the tiny dorm room, taking a selfie to send to my mom with the caption, "Tomorrow is the big day." But that Saturday morning changed everything in ways I never could have imagined. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever had your family disappoint you at the worst possible moment. Subscribe because this story has a twist that will leave you speechless, and trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. My name is Rachel, and I am 27 years old. I come from a tight-knit Irish-American family in Boston. Growing up, we were not wealthy, but we were proud. My dad, Patrick, worked construction his whole life, building skyscrapers with his bare hands, and he always told me that education was the one thing nobody could take away from me. My mom, Susan, worked as a nurse at Boston General, pulling double shifts to help pay for my undergraduate degree. They both believed in my dreams, even when those dreams seemed impossible for a girl from our neighborhood. But our family dynamics were complicated. My uncle David, my dad's younger brother, had always been the black sheep. At 45, he was unemployed again after getting fired from his third job in 2 years. He lived with his wife Linda and their 19-year-old son Tommy in a cramped apartment 2 blocks from us. Uncle David had a way of making every family gathering about his problems, and lately those problems included a lot of resentment toward anyone who was doing better than he was. For 2 years, I worked 3 part-time jobs while finishing my dissertation. I served coffee at a campus cafe every morning before my lab work, tutored undergraduates in the evenings, and spent weekends cleaning houses in the affluent neighborhoods around Harvard. Every dollar I earned went into a special savings account with one purpose: bringing my family to California for my graduation ceremony. The math was brutal, but clear. 5 round-trip tickets from Boston to Los Angeles cost $1,200 each. I needed to book them early to get the best prices, so I had been planning this for months. I researched hotels near campus, found a lovely place that would accommodate everyone for 3 days and 2 nights. I even made reservations at a fancy restaurant for our celebration dinner, the kind of place where they put cloth napkins on your lap, and the salad costs $18. 2 months before graduation, I sent a detailed email to everyone with the complete itinerary. Flight numbers, hotel address, restaurant reservations, even suggestions for what to pack for California weather. I was so excited that I included a countdown timer and wrote, "Cannot wait to share this incredible moment with the people I love most." My dad called me immediately after getting the email. "Sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I have never been more proud of anyone in my entire life. Your grandmother would be over the moon." My mom texted me heart emojis and said she had already started shopping for a new outfit. Even cousin Tommy seemed excited, asking if he could bring his camera to take pictures. But Uncle David's response should have been a red flag. Instead of calling or texting, he left a comment on my Facebook post about the upcoming graduation. "Must be nice to have money to waste on fancy trips." When my mom mentioned it during our weekly phone call, she tried to brush it off. You know how David gets when he is stressed. Tommy dropping out of community college has been really hard on him. My dad assured me that everything would be fine. "David just needs time to process. He is proud of you too, honey. He just has a hard time showing it." I wanted to believe that was true, but something in my gut told me that Uncle David's jealousy was growing into something uglier. The week before graduation, the signs became more obvious. Uncle David started making passive-aggressive comments during family dinners. "Some people get to play student forever while the rest of us work real jobs," he said when I mentioned defending my dissertation. When I explained that my research on cellular regeneration could potentially help develop new cancer treatments, he rolled his eyes and said, "Sounds like a lot of fancy words for sitting in a library." But nothing prepared me for what happened the Friday night before my graduation ceremony. I was in my dorm room pressing my graduation dress and double-checking all the arrangements when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom at 11 p.m. "Honey, there has been a change of plans. We will call you tomorrow." I immediately called her back. The phone rang and rang, but nobody answered. I tried my dad's phone, then Uncle David's, then Aunt Linda's. Nothing. I sent text messages to everyone asking what was going on, but my phone remained silent. I did not sleep a single minute that night, staring at the ceiling and trying to imagine what could have gone wrong. Maybe someone was sick. Maybe there was a family emergency. Maybe the flights got canceled due to weather. Saturday morning arrived with California sunshine streaming through my dorm room windows, but the beautiful weather felt like a mockery of my growing anxiety. I had been awake since 6 a.m., checking my phone obsessively for any word from my family. My graduation ceremony was scheduled to start at 2 p.m., and I still had no idea where anyone was or what had happened to change their plans. At 7 a.m., I called my dad's phone again, straight to voicemail. At 8 a.m., I texted my mom. "Where are you guys? I am really worried." The response I got 40 minutes later felt like a punch to the stomach. "We are at the airport, but not coming to California." I called her immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear the chaos of an airport terminal in the background, announcements echoing over loudspeakers, rolling suitcases clicking across tile floors, the general buzz of travelers. "Mom, what do you mean you are not coming? What airport are you at?" There was a long pause before she answered, and when she spoke, her voice sounded strange. Guilty. "Honey, David convinced us that this was a waste of money. He said you are getting a fake degree, and we should use the money for a real family vacation instead." The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat down hard on my narrow dorm bed, still wearing the pajamas I had been too anxious to change out of. "Mom, I have been working toward this moment for 8 years. This is my doctoral graduation from Harvard University." "I know, sweetheart, but David made some really good points about how much money this was costing, and Tommy has been so depressed since dropping out of school. David thought a nice family trip would cheer everyone up." In the background, I could hear Uncle David's voice, loud and obnoxious. "Tell her to stop being so dramatic. She can walk across the stage any time." My dad took the phone from my mom. "I am sorry, kiddo, but we are already here at the airport, and the tickets are non-refundable. David found this incredible deal, and it seemed like it would be good for family morale." "Dad, where exactly are you going?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Greece. David found a package deal to Athens and some islands. 2 weeks for the same price as your graduation trip." The pieces clicked together in my mind with devastating clarity. They had not just decided not to come to my graduation. They had taken the $14,000 I had sent them for flights and accommodations and used it to book a vacation to Greece instead. My Uncle David, who had been unemployed for 6 months and constantly complained about money, had somehow convinced my parents to betray their own daughter for a vacation. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked. Another long pause. "About 2 weeks. David presented it as a surprise family bonding experience." 2 weeks. They had been planning this betrayal for 2 weeks, letting me believe they would be there for the most important day of my life, while secretly booking flights to Europe instead. Every time I had called to confirm details, every excited text message I had sent, every moment I had imagined sharing this achievement with them, it had all been built on a lie. At 10:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text message that made my blood run cold. It was from Uncle David himself. "Stop calling your parents. You are not even a real doctor. Real doctors save lives. You just read books and write papers nobody cares about. This trip will actually make the family happy, unlike your pretentious graduation ceremony." I stared at the message until the words blurred together. 8 years of sacrifice. 8 years of living on ramen noodles and secondhand textbooks. 8 years of working multiple jobs while my classmates got support from their families. $200,000 in student debt. Countless nights in the lab analyzing data and running experiments driven by the dream of making a difference in cancer research. And according to my Uncle David, none of it mattered because I was not a real doctor. I sat alone in my dorm room, my carefully applied makeup now streaked down my cheeks, looking at my graduation dress hanging in the closet like a symbol of everything I had lost. The graduation ceremony would begin in less than 4 hours, and the people who should have been cheering loudest for my achievement were boarding a plane to Greece, funded by my own money. At 11 a.m., sitting on my dorm room floor with tear-stained cheeks, I made a decision that would change everything. I was not going to let Uncle David's cruelty destroy the most important day of my life. I picked up my phone and called my best friend Sarah, who was also finishing her PhD in the biochemistry department. "Sarah, I need you to be my family today," I said when she answered. "What happened?" The concern in her voice was immediate and genuine. I explained the entire situation while she listened with growing outrage. "Rachel, that is absolutely horrible. But you know what blood does not mean automatic respect, and those people do not deserve to witness your moment of triumph. Let me make some calls." Within 30 minutes, Sarah had assembled a group of 5 people from our research lab who dropped everything to serve as my chosen family. They arrived at my dorm with flowers, a bottle of champagne for later, and hugs that felt more genuine than any I had received from my actual relatives in years. "We are your real family," Sarah said firmly. "We have watched you work harder than anyone else for 8 years. We have seen you fall asleep at your lab bench and get up the next morning to do it again. We know what this achievement means, and we are honored to celebrate it with you." As I got dressed in my graduation robes, I thought about my grandmother's words from 15 years earlier. "Education is the one thing no one can take from you," she had whispered during our last conversation. Uncle David might not understand the value of knowledge, but he was about to learn something important about the power of education. The graduation ceremony was held in the main quad under a brilliant blue sky. When my name was called, Rachel Thompson, Doctor of Philosophy in Biomedical Sciences, my chosen family cheered with a volume that could be heard across campus. Sarah recorded everything on her phone, making sure to capture the moment when I accepted my diploma from the dean and shook hands with the professors who had guided my research. Standing on that stage, holding the physical proof of 8 years of dedication, I felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with external validation. I had earned this moment through my own determination and intelligence. I thought again of my grandmother's words and realized she had been preparing me for exactly this situation. No one could take this achievement away from me, not even family members who were too small-minded to recognize its value. During the reception afterward, my lab family and I took dozens of photos. We laughed and shared stories about the most challenging moments of our graduate programs. Professor Martinez, my dissertation advisor, pulled me aside and said, "Rachel, your research on cellular regeneration therapy has the potential to save thousands of lives. I hope you know how proud we all are of the scientist you have become." By 2 p.m., as my actual family was probably settling into their airplane seats bound for Greece, I was surrounded by people who truly understood and celebrated my accomplishments. But I was also formulating a plan that would teach Uncle David exactly how wrong he was about the value of education. Back in my dorm room, I opened my laptop and began researching. If Uncle David wanted to dismiss my achievements as worthless, I would provide him with some facts that might change his perspective. I discovered that his LinkedIn profile claimed he had a bachelor's degree from Boston University, but when I called my dad's friend who worked in the registrar's office there, I learned that David had never graduated from any college. He had attended for 2 semesters before dropping out, but had been lying about his educational background for over 20 years. I also did some digging into his recent employment history. Uncle David had been fired from his last job at a warehouse for consistently showing up late and arguing with supervisors. Before that, he had been let go from a retail position for similar attitude problems. His current unemployment was not the result of a difficult economy or lack of opportunities. It was the direct result of his own poor choices and inability to take responsibility for his actions. Most interestingly, I discovered through some family connections that Uncle David had convinced Aunt Linda to withdraw money from her retirement savings account to help pay for the Greece trip. She had been saving that money for 15 years, working extra shifts at her part-time job at a grocery store, and David had convinced her to spend it on a vacation by telling her that my graduation money would cover most of the expenses. In other words, not only had he stolen my graduation fund, but he had also manipulated his wife into depleting her life savings based on lies. Armed with this information, I crafted what would become the most important piece of writing I had ever composed outside of my dissertation. At 3 p.m., exactly 24 hours after I should have been celebrating with my family, I sat down to write a response that would make Uncle David regret every word of his insulting text message. As someone who had just earned a doctoral degree, I knew the power of well-researched, clearly presented arguments. It was time to educate Uncle David about exactly what he had dismissed. I opened a new document and began typing, "Dear Uncle David, thank you for your feedback regarding my educational achievements. As you requested clarification about my status as a doctor, please find attached my doctoral degree in biomedical sciences from Harvard University. This degree required the following qualifications: 4 years of undergraduate study, graduating summa cum laude with a double major in biology and chemistry. 4 years of doctoral research during which I published 12 peer-reviewed papers in prestigious scientific journals. A dissertation defense before 5 international experts in cellular biology who unanimously approved my original research. Most importantly, a contribution to cancer research that has the potential to save thousands of lives through improved treatment protocols. You are correct that I am not a medical doctor. I am a doctor of philosophy, a designation that has existed for over 800 years and represents the highest level of academic achievement in my field. My research focuses on cellular regeneration therapy, which means I study how to help the human body heal itself more effectively after cancer treatment. While I do not perform surgery or prescribe medication, my work contributes to the scientific knowledge that makes those medical interventions possible. Since you mentioned that my education was a waste of money, I have attached an itemized invoice for the $14,000 that was designated for my graduation expenses, but was redirected to fund your family vacation to Greece. As you clearly stated that this money was wasted on my degree, I assume you would prefer to reimburse these funds directly, rather than benefit from what you consider a frivolous expenditure. Please note that payment is due within 30 days of receipt of this invoice. Given your strong opinions about fiscal responsibility and real work, I am confident you will prioritize settling this debt promptly. Additionally, I wanted to congratulate you on your own educational achievements. Your LinkedIn profile indicates that you graduated from Boston University with a bachelor's degree. That is quite an accomplishment for someone who actually only completed 2 semesters of coursework before withdrawing from the program. I am sure your current employer appreciates the accuracy of your resume, although I understand you are currently between positions. I hope you enjoy your vacation to Greece. I am sure the ancient Greeks who invented the concept of higher education and established the first universities would be fascinated to meet someone who considers intellectual achievement worthless, while simultaneously benefiting from centuries of accumulated knowledge every time he boards an airplane, uses a cell phone, or receives medical treatment. Please give my regards to the family, especially Aunt Linda. I hope she is aware that her retirement savings are funding this educational experience about the importance of honesty in family relationships. Sincerely, Dr. Rachel Thompson, Ph.D., Harvard University Department of Biomedical Sciences. I attached a high-resolution scan of my diploma, along with a formal invoice listing every expense that had been planned for the graduation celebration. Then I did something that Uncle David would never expect from his quiet, studious niece. I posted the entire exchange on our family Facebook group. The post included screenshots of Uncle David's original text message calling me a fake doctor, my formal response with all its devastating facts, and a collection of photos from my graduation ceremony with my chosen family. I tagged every relative, family, friend, and neighbor who might be interested in seeing how Uncle David really felt about education and family loyalty. My caption read, "When your blood family abandons you on the most important day of your life, your real family shows up." Thank you to everyone who celebrated with me today. To those who chose a vacation over supporting family, I hope you learned something valuable about the true meaning of education. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, comments began pouring in from relatives I had not heard from in years. My grandfather, Dad's father, wrote, "David, you should be ashamed of yourself. Your niece has brought honor to this family, and you have brought disgrace." My great-aunt Martha commented, "Rachel, I am so proud of you. Your grandmother would be beaming with pride right now." Family friends who had watched me grow up started sharing their own comments of support. Mrs. Peterson from down the street wrote, "I remember when Rachel was 7 years old saying she wanted to help cure cancer. Now she actually has the education to do it, and some people call that worthless." But the most satisfying responses came from unexpected sources. Uncle David's former boss, who lived in our neighborhood, commented, "Wow, David, I had no idea you felt this way about education. Very enlightening." A coworker from Aunt Linda's grocery store wrote, "Linda never mentioned that David thought college was a waste of time. Interesting perspective from someone who lied about having a degree." Within 2 hours, Uncle David was frantically trying to delete comments and control the narrative, but screenshots of his original message had already been shared by multiple family members. The damage to his reputation was spreading beyond our immediate family circle, reaching his former employers, current neighbors, and potential future job contacts. At 5 p.m., my phone rang with a call from Aunt Linda. "Rachel, honey, I had no idea David sent you that horrible message. And I certainly did not know he used your graduation money for this trip. He told me you had decided not to have the family come and wanted us to take a vacation instead. Aunt Linda, he convinced my parents to abandon my graduation ceremony and use the money I sent them to book your vacation. Did you know the money came from me?" There was a long silence before she answered. "He told me he had saved up for a surprise family trip. I never would have agreed to this if I had known he was lying to everyone involved. I am mortified, Rachel. Absolutely mortified." "There is something else you should know," I said gently. "I think David also used money from your retirement account without telling you the full truth about where the graduation funds went." Another silence, this one longer and more ominous. "I need to make some phone calls," Aunt Linda said finally. "Rachel, I am so sorry. You deserve so much better than this." The aftermath of my social media post unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony of justice. By 6 p.m., my mom had called my phone 14 times in a row, but I was not ready to talk to her yet. I was still processing the betrayal and enjoying the validation from extended family members who understood exactly how wrong Uncle David's behavior had been. My cousin Tommy was the first member of the immediate family to break ranks. He sent me a private message saying, "Dad made us do this. He said your graduation was just a fancy party and the money would be better spent on family time together. I wanted to be there for you, Rachel. I have always looked up to you, and I am sorry we let you down." The messages from extended family continued throughout the evening. Relatives I had not spoken to in years were reaching out to express their pride in my achievement and their disgust with Uncle David's behavior. Several cousins shared stories about times when Uncle David had made similar dismissive comments about their own accomplishments, creating a pattern of jealousy and undermining behavior that had been ignored for too long. The most significant development came when Aunt Linda discovered the full extent of Uncle David's financial manipulation. She found out that he had not only used my graduation funds and her retirement savings, but had also charged additional expenses for the Greece trip to a credit card that was in her name without her knowledge. The total cost of their vacation was approaching $25,000 money that their family absolutely could not afford. Meanwhile, Uncle David's reputation in our extended family and neighborhood was crumbling rapidly. His former boss at the warehouse shared the Facebook post with other supervisors explaining that this behavior pattern matched what they had observed during his employment. Word spread through his social circles that he had lied about having a college degree and had financially manipulated his own family to fund a luxury vacation. By Sunday evening, Uncle David was facing consequences he had never anticipated. Aunt Linda had consulted with a divorce attorney and was considering legal action for financial fraud. His job prospects in the local area had essentially evaporated as employers learned about his dishonest character. Most importantly, he had lost the respect of every family member who had seen his true nature revealed through social media. On Monday, my parents cut their Greece vacation short and flew to California to spend 3 days with me making amends. The conversation when they arrived at my apartment was painful, but necessary. "We let David manipulate us," my dad said, his voice heavy with shame. "He played on our financial worries and made us believe that supporting you was somehow selfish or wasteful. I have never made a worse decision in my life." My mom was crying as she explained how Uncle David had pressured them. "He said that you were showing off that you did not really need us there, that the money would be better spent on bringing the family together. He made it sound like we were choosing between your happiness and everyone else's." "But Mom," I said gently, "you were choosing between my happiness and everyone else's. The difference is that my happiness was based on 8 years of hard work and sacrifice, while his was based on jealousy and entitlement." The 3 days we spent together in California were healing in ways I had not expected. Away from Uncle David's influence, my parents could see clearly how they had been manipulated into betraying their own values. My dad spent hours looking through my research publications, trying to understand the work I had been doing. My mom asked detailed questions about my future career plans and how my research might help cancer patients. More importantly, they both committed to setting firm boundaries with Uncle David going forward. "We are not going to let anyone come between our family again," my dad promised. "Your achievements deserve to be celebrated, not diminished by people who are too insecure to handle other people's success." 3 months later, the long-term consequences of Uncle David's behavior were still unfolding. He and Aunt Linda had separated, and she was pursuing legal action to recover the money he had stolen from her retirement account. Tommy had moved in with his maternal grandparents and was planning to return to community college in the fall. Uncle David was living alone in a studio apartment working at a fast food restaurant and was essentially estranged from the entire family. Meanwhile, my career was flourishing exactly as I had hoped. The pharmaceutical company that had recruited me was impressed enough with my research to offer me a leadership position in their cancer treatment development division. My work on cellular regeneration therapy was being incorporated into clinical trials that could help thousands of patients within the next 5 years. 6 months after graduation, I had established a new routine of monthly video calls with my parents who now understood and genuinely supported my career. We talked about my research projects, my life in California, and plans for them to visit me regularly. The relationship we built after the Greece incident was stronger and more honest than it had ever been before. The most satisfying part of the entire experience was realizing that Uncle David had inadvertently done me a favor. His betrayal had forced me to discover my own inner strength and to build a support network based on shared values rather than family obligation. The people who celebrated my graduation became lifelong friends who understood and appreciated the work I was doing. Uncle David's attempt to diminish my achievements had actually highlighted their importance. Every time someone read his dismissive comments alongside my educational credentials, they could see the stark contrast between ignorance and accomplishment, between jealousy and genuine achievement. Looking back on that painful weekend, I realized that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are actually doing us a favor. They force us to find our real strength, to identify our true supporters, and to stop seeking validation from people who are incapable of providing it. My research paper on cellular regeneration therapy was eventually published in the New England Journal of Medicine and contributed to securing funding for a new children's cancer treatment center. Every time I think about the lives that might be saved because of the work I was able to do, I remember Uncle David's words about how I just read books that nobody cares about. The truth is that education is power, and people like Uncle David know it. That is why they try so hard to diminish it in others. They understand that knowledge creates opportunities they will never have, and instead of working to improve themselves, they choose to tear down the people who remind them of their own limitations. I learned that day that I did not need my family's validation to be proud of myself. I learned that respect is earned through character and integrity, not demanded through family connections. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming who you were meant to be, regardless of who believes in you along the way. Today, when young students in my research lab feel discouraged or unsupported by their families, I tell them this story. I tell them that their education belongs to them alone, that their achievements cannot be diminished by other people's insecurity, and that the right people will always recognize and celebrate real accomplishment. What started as the worst day of my life became the day I discovered my own strength and independence. What seemed like a devastating betrayal became the foundation for healthier relationships and clearer boundaries. Sometimes the people who try to tear us down end up building us up in ways we never could have imagined. And Uncle David. He learned that when you try to humiliate someone who has worked harder and achieved more than you have, you usually end up humiliating yourself instead. Education really is the one thing no one can take from you, but respect is something that can be lost forever in a single text message. The ancient Greeks would indeed have been fascinated to meet someone who considered intellectual achievement worthless while benefiting from centuries of accumulated knowledge. They probably would have had a word for that kind of irony, but Uncle David never would have been educated enough to understand it. Have you ever had family members try to diminish your achievements because of their own insecurities? Let me know in the comments below what happened and how you handled it. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming family drama and finding your inner strength. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their education and hard work matter, regardless of what their family thinks. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your achievements are valid whether or not the people around you have the wisdom to recognize them. Sometimes the most important lesson we can learn is that we do not need anyone else's permission to be proud of ourselves.